What we're discussing is the effects of COVID-19 on non-league and the decisions that have been taken.
Okay.
So is that all right?
Fine. Absolutely fine and dandy.
Right, well, you're the expert, so tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, I think, to be honest, I don't think a lot of thought went into the initial, let's just get rid of the non-league below the National League North and South. You know, it's just a case of, let's just wipe it out.
Yeah.
I don't think any thought whatsoever was taken with regard to the future of all those clubs, because let's be honest, some of those clubs will not be around when we come to play again. I keep seeing things like, I saw Ian Dark on Twitter saying, playing behind closed doors, all these EFL clubs are reliant on gate money. And I replied to him saying, what about all the clubs in non-league? Aren't they reliant on gate money? And it conveniently didn't come back to me. But I think initially, that first, let's just get rid of non-league football, it was panic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't think I said to you before, the fact that all the club fines stay in place, all the individual fines stay in place, yet the league didn't exist.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
There's some clubs, there's a couple of clubs that I've dealt with a lot this year, like Vauxhall Motors, who are on the way back from, to the heady days of top table in non-league football. Mike McGrath's done a great job there. They've won the league with 9 games to go, and it's been null and void. And I just think it's a bit, that's maybe me feeling sorry for somebody I've become quite friendly with. But really, do we just null and void it? If we're going to null and void, then surely it's across the table. It's not just lower leagues. And the other thing that sort of maybe thought of is a lot of players' contracts ended. They're only 40-week contracts, whether they're getting 10 quid a week or £2,000 a week. They're only on 40-week contracts. So I can see that came into play. Funny enough, I've just done an article for this week, I think it's going in this week's non-league paper, about how somebody like myself has been involved in football for more decades than I'd like to admit to. But my last game was a last-minute thing. I ended up doing co-commentary for Radio Manchester with Mike Miney because City's game, City was supposed to be playing Arsenal, so that got called off. Then they were going somewhere else, and all of a sudden on Saturday morning they had no game to fulfil for their listeners. Mike rang me up, he's the City commentator, I know Mike quite well. Any chance you can come to Bradford Park Avenue with me, because I need somebody who knows the game and knows the players and stuff. And yeah, it was brilliant. But it was only on reflection, all these weeks later, how I, as an individual, I just took it for granted that I go to football on a Saturday. And whether I'm getting paid to go or not, I take it for granted that I go to football. All those thousands and thousands of non-league footballers who, let's be honest, it might only be 20 quid a week, but it's 20 quid a week that they're suddenly got to find somewhere else. If you look at the levels up until, let's say, just below the North and South, most of those players will be on, a couple of hundred, maybe 300 or 400 quid a week. And that's, some of them, that's more or less all their, more income than they can earn, part-time work. So there's a lot of people have suddenly gone out of work. Obviously, most non-league clubs are reliant on volunteers. So, those volunteers will probably be volunteering, delivering food. I've done a bit of that myself just to keep myself busy. But it's the people whose livelihoods I feel sorry for. Forget the titles, forget the lads who scored more goals than they've ever scored. It's unfortunate. Some lads have broken club records this season and now they haven't. But you've got, sooner or later you've got to say, well, that's unfortunate. That is, but the fact that it's not been done across the board is what I think it sort of rankles with people. I understand that the Premier League have got to pay massive rebates if they don't complete the season, and I understand that the money side of things is what's driving that. My take on it is, it's if you're going to wipe out non-league, then you wipe out all non-league. You don't just wipe out the ones who don't really matter to the top table, because that's just the Premier League in a different guise.
Yeah.
You know, the National League are actually behaving like the Premier League.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's what's happening. The fact that, you know, you've got the National League North, or the North and South at the moment, they still don't know whether they're having playoffs, whether they're going to get promoted. I mean, go back to the top table in non-league. Why should Barrow be promoted? What are they, 4 points clear?
Yeah, and they've got to play the 2 teams below.
Yeah, and they've got to play both. I think they've certainly got to play Harrogate, and they've got to play Yeovil. And also, the next 3 games, their top scorer is suspended. And your 20-odd goal man who's not playing, you're not guaranteed to win those 3 games that he's not playing in. So, this is why I think the argument is for null and void across the board, or give the titles out, or play the last few games or whatever. But you've got to do it all the same, for me, across the board. The fact that the EFL can't agree their own arguments is really basically because they don't want to make a decision that the Premier League will change. Because if the Premier League decides there's no relegation, what's the point of the Championship saying that Leeds and West Brom are going up? Because they're not. If the Premier League say we're not playing the season out, or we are playing the season out, but we're not having relegation, where do those 2 teams go?
I mean, you know my feelings. I've said right from the word go that to null and void it right across the board is the simplest to administer. It's the fairest, in as much as, well, it screws everyone. And in all honesty, it's the least likely to end up in courts, because, you know, there's been a global pandemic. You know, what are the football authorities really supposed to do?
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. Like you say, that the likelihood of court cases. I think the Scottish thing has proven that if everybody votes for it, the likelihood of Hearts winning any claim is unlikely. Because
I think it's disgraceful what's happened to Hearts. I really do.
I mean, you know, you've been got football, you know, as long as I have, and you know how many times, probably every single season in our, 50 years ago at football, every single season, some team has got out of jail.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this year, nobody's given, it doesn't look as though anybody's going to be given that chance, and somebody always does it.
I was looking at the league table last year with 9-10 games to go. County was 7th.
Yeah.
And we won the league.
Well, even with 3 games to go, they looked like throwing it away, didn't they, with 2 games to go?
Yeah.
So anything can happen, and generally, usually does at some level, and sometimes more than one level, and sometimes several levels. It happens. So, I agree with you that really null and void is probably the fairest if everybody's treated the same. Because if everyone's treated the same, then that is deemed as being fair, I think.
It's horrible, but fair.
Yeah, I mean, you feel sorry for. I genuinely feel sorry for any individual that's had the best season he's ever had, or any team that's, won a league with 9 games to go. Or, and then you've got the other side of the coin where you've got teams like Fylde who would, they've just turned the corner, they've won a few games, but they're probably not going to stay up because they've not got enough quality in the side to stay up. They've got some good individuals, but I've seen them a lot. And they're nowhere near the team they were 2 years ago or even last year. So there's every chance that they would have gone down, and yet they're going to stay up. Yeah. So how is that fair? So it's only fair if everybody's treated the same, in my opinion. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Yeah. So now we've got to deal with not the what ifs. We've got to deal with what's actually going to happen, because the decision was made to wipe out everybody apart from the top 3 divisions in non-league. And even, what are we talking, probably a month since that decision, maybe more, they've still not decided what they're doing with the top 3 divisions in non-league football.
Yeah, everybody's frightened of losing this mythical.
Well, nobody wants to blink first, Dave. That's the thing.
And it's like they're all holding out for a bit of cash, and whilst they're holding out, they're bleeding cash, and it's like, well, just make it. I know maxim is no decision is worse than any decision you can make, and that's what I think football is found itself in right now.
I think when all's said and done, everybody that is still in talks are at the behest of what decision the Premier League come to.
Yeah.
Because it's like a domino effect. You know, if the Premier League decide that they're definitely going to play the last 9 or 10 games, whatever it is, and they are going to have relegation, then the Championship can say, right, we're going to have promotion, we're going to have relegation, and then so forth. Yeah. League One, League Two, National League South, North. But nobody below the Premier League can blink first. They can't.
Yeah. That's in that plan that I put out there in the first of this podcast series, I said that it's going to have to be the government, like it was in France, that says, just pack it in, lads, it's not safe, stop. Because that would be the catalyst for the Premier League to have to stop, because the government says you've got to. And then, as you say, it will trickle down then. But whilst the Premier League are holding out well, they're trying to mitigate the losses, because I think they're going to end up having to pay a chunk of money back anyway. But whilst
a sizable chunk as well.
Yeah, exactly that. So while they're trying to mitigate it by doing everything they can to play, and I'm sure they do want to play the games, I'm sure they do want to do that. But, you know, whilst that is still a possibility, everyone else, like you said, is in zombie land.
Yeah. I mean, I see Troy Deeney getting a bit of stick this morning on social media because he's not turning up for training. And, you know, he's got a 5-month-old baby that's got respiratory problems. You know, why would he even consider going playing? And then you've got people say, well, if he was a League Two player or a non-league player, he wouldn't have that decision to make because he needs the money. I think people are just forgetting the fact that thousands and thousands of people are dying.
Yeah.
You know, it's just.
He's just being a good dad.
Yeah, of course he is. And funny enough, I saw a quote and he said, I've been broke before, so it doesn't worry me. I mean, I think it probably would bother him, but I get what he's saying. You know,
But this idea that it's easy for him to make this decision, it's easier for him to make that decision because he's got a few quid. But it doesn't, just because you have an easier opportunity to make the right decision, doesn't make it any less the right decision.
No, I mean,
because he's got a few quid for making the right decision is appalling.
I just been listening to the radio a few minutes ago, and it was saying that these 6 players that are tested positive in the Premier League, the spin on it is, well, the good thing is, if we hadn't been doing testing, those 6 players would have been mixing with people. So the justification of trying to get these games played is what's galling me. You know, at the end of the day, just call it off. Yeah. Get everybody fit and well, and then let's just have a new season as and when. Because let's be honest, even if they don't play these last few games, they're still not going to be ready for the season, for the normal season dates. You're not going to be able to kick off at the end of August, beginning of September for a new season. So why are we even contemplating finishing this one when we could be putting plans in place to start the next one?
Totally agree. Right, Phil, we're going to have to go, but I appreciate that. That's been brilliant, and enjoy that sunshine.
I think sunshine.
Yeah.
I think I will.
See you, mate.
Cheers.